What's going on, everybody? So I've spent a lot of time talking about the different grading companies, talking about old grades versus new grades, talking about PSA versus SGC, and a lot of the analysis that I've been doing so far has been based mostly around PSA because there are so many cards, so many more cards graded by PSA than SGC. It just gives you more data to work with to make the results a little bit more reliable. But my friend, the card professor, put his information right here. Really good guy, really positive guy, a dealer in Northern California, is at a lot of the big shows. You know, he asked me the other day, he said, what about the difference between the old SGC labels and the new SGC labels? Does there seem to be a price difference between those two? See, he PCs old SGC labels. He actually prefers them. And he has like a whole bunch of Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards in the old label. And he was just curious, like, have I noticed a difference or had I looked into it? So I thought that's a great idea because a lot of us collectors, especially vintage collectors, are mostly or exclusively SGC. And if that's the case, we want to know, A, if there's a difference in the grading standard for the old SGC label versus the new SGC label. And then the second part of it is, does the sale price seem to be lower for the old label? So again, when we look at an old label versus a new label in SGC, because in PSA, people seem to feel that an old label is not as nice of a card. And in a lot of cases, it's less valuable. Is that the case with SGC? Are the cards in the same grades worse in the old labels than the new labels? Yes or no? And then also the final sale price. Are they lower than the newer labels? As always, I don't know the results when I go into one of these things. I don't know what to expect. But I can tell you this, I did not expect what I found in this one. Check this out. I think anybody who's an SGC collector is really going to find this interesting. And even if you're, you know, indifferent or even a PSA person, I think we need to know what's going on in the market. And I think we need to know what's going on with the prices and the standards at SGC. Check it out.
So do the SGC labels matter? I mean, let's take a closer look. You can see the older one on the left and the newer one on the right. So we're going to take a look at 8 different cards, and we're going to start off with the 1952 Mini Minoso rookie card. Now we have 2 of them here. So which of these do you think is better? Now to me, I think the one on the bottom is a little bit sharper. The one on the top has a little bit of a tilt, but the centering is similar. But the one on the bottom has those print marks there. So which is better? Which do you think sold for more? Well, the one on the top is an old label SGC4, and it sold for $435. The one on the bottom sold for significantly less, and it's a new holder 4. So do you think those are equivalent? I think they're pretty similar cards. Again, the bottom's a little sharper to me, centering similar, but the print marks on the bottom I think make it about even, but it's sold for way less, even though it's a newer holder. All right, here we go for a 53 mantle. Now in this case, I think the one on the bottom is sharper, similar centering. Color might be a little better on the top, at least a little bit more vibrant on the top. So which of those do you think is an old holder, and which do you think is a new holder? And which one do you think sold for more? Well, the one on the top, that's the old holder. And that's a old holder SGC4, sold for $4,300. The one on the bottom sold for right around 5,000, so quite a bit more. Now, I think the one on the bottom is a nicer card, and it's a new holder. So far out of the two, one time the older holder sold for more, and once the new holder sold for more. Let's look at these two. Now, this is an interesting one. So these, again, all of these cards are going to be the same grade. So these cards got the same grade from SGC. Now, the one on the top is way clearer, way sharper, but it's really poorly cut top to bottom. It's almost a miscut. The bottom is really well centered all the way around, but it is definitely softer. So which one do you think sold for more, and which one do you think is the newer grade? Well, the one on the top sold for $1,700 in a best offer. The best offer sale price was $1,700. And look at the one on the bottom. Older holder, and it sold for significantly more. And that was a buy it now. Interesting to me that the card that was much sharper sold for much less, even though it's a newer holder, because of that centering. Now, these two, this is interesting. So the one on the bottom kind of has a poor scan, in my opinion. The left part of the scan is a little bit blurry, but this is what they posted on their listing. I think these cards are very, very similar. I mean, they're both fairly soft. Centering's very similar. Centering on the top one's probably a little bit better. Not much. Corners on the bottom, I don't know. So one on the top is the old label SGC 3. So that means the one on the bottom is the new label SGC 3, and the sale price is almost exactly the same. So far we've had a couple where the old label sold for more, one where the new label sold for more, and then these are pretty much the same. I mean, what, $2.50 difference. So, but technically the newer holder sold for a little bit more. So it's 2-2 if you're keeping score. Now these two cards. Now the one on the top looks really, really nice. But there is a crease. You can see on the umpire's back there. There's a crease through that from his shoulder down. The one on the bottom isn't as well centered and it's not as sharp. The color is a little bit yellowed, but there's no big crease like the one on the top. So the one on the top is an old holder, sold for $227.50, and it's a 2.5. So one on the bottom is a new holder 2.5, and look at what that one sold for. Sold for 10% less, $20 less. Despite the crease on the top one, it's still sold for more, but it is, other than that crease, it's a super sharp card. So eye appeal wise, I do like the one on the top, but I like both of them. Now this one's close to me. We got a 57 Willie Mays. Centering is very similar. Color looks a little bit better on the top. Not sure if that's because of the scan that was used for the eBay listing or just because of the color. I lean probably a little bit towards the one on the top, maybe, just because of the color and the clarity. So the one on the top is the newer grade. Now they were asking $275, but the final sale price was a best offer accepted at $225. And the one on the bottom was an auction, and the bids got to $173.50. So the one on the top sold for about $50 more, which is, you know, 25% more. It's a lot more, which is interesting since they're fairly similar cards. But I do think the one on the top is a little bit better. All right, so here we have a couple of 58 Clementes. Now the one on the bottom is really well centered. The one on the top, little off center, top to bottom and left to right. But you see the one on the bottom, look at that bottom left-hand corner. There's kind of a crease that goes along through the red portion of the writing there. So which of these would you rather have? Now again, centerings definitely goes to the one on the bottom. The one on the top sold for $175, and that's the old label. And this got a 3. So the one on the bottom is a new label 3. And it sold for $198. So again, this sold for, over 10% more. What, 15% or so more than the one on the top, despite that crease there on the bottom left-hand portion. So again, I don't see a trend of the newer holders doing better than the older holders, which is interesting. All right, here we go. Last card, 1960, Willie McCovey rookie. Now, both of these look really, really nice to me. Both are pretty sharp, really well centered all the way around. I think I would lean toward the one on the bottom. I think the corners are a little bit sharper on the bottom. Color might be a little bit better on the bottom. Centering might be a little bit better on the bottom. The one on the top is the old holder, and the best offer was accepted at $725. And this is less than a month ago. And then just a couple of days ago, the one on the bottom and a new holder sold for $685. So I actually think the one on the bottom is a little bit better than the one on the top. And it's a newer holder, but it sold for, $40 less. So that's very interesting to me. When you look at PSA cards, historically, the older PSA grades don't do as well as the newer ones. But with SGC, it's different.